First, I am going to search the site CG Trader for a 3D model that can be used in a physics course. For example, this model of Newton's classical cradle only costs a few dollars, but you can also find lots of free models on this site. Once I have downloaded the model, I am going to import it into the free tool, Blender. Blender is really easy to use for creating simple animations. This timeline will automatically record an animation if we just set the start and end point of each part that we would like to move. In this section, you can see the position and rotation of the part that is currently selected. Let's rotate this pendulum to make it move as in the real Newton's cradle. First, I need to set the point that we want the pendulum to rotate around. You can set this by holding down the Shift key and clicking your right mouse button on the point. In this case, we want the pendulum to rotate around the center point between the two chords. Before we rotate the pendulum, we need to store the starting position by inserting a so-called keyframe. You do this by pointing your mouse to this angle field and press the I key on your keyboard. Notice how the angle input fields in the panel change color and how a yellow dot is inserted in the timeline. To rotate the pendulum, you can now simply press the key R on your keyboard and then rotate the pendulum to the desired angle. Let's set it to 25 degrees, for example. Again, I need to store this new position by inserting a keyframe by pointing to the angle field in the right panel and pressing the I key again. I can now move the pendulum back to the starting position by again pressing R and rotate the angle back to 0. Now, all I need to do to complete the animation of Newton's cradle is to repeat the same steps for the pendulum at the other end of the cradle. First, I set the rotation point by holding Shift and clicking the right mouse button, then I rotate the pendulum to 25 degrees and store the position. Again, I insert a keyframe to store the position by pointing the mouse to the angle field and press the I key on my keyboard. I can now move the pendulum back to start and add the final keyframe to the animation, but to make this a bit faster, we can use a nice trick. By right-clicking on the little yellow diamond in the timeline and selecting Duplicate, you can reuse the start keyframe from before and simply drag on the timeline. As a final step, I need to make sure that I have added start and stop keyframes for the entire timeline for both pendulum animations. For each pendulum, I will duplicate and drag the keyframes like this. The yellow lines that appear means that the pendulum does not move between these keyframes. The animation is now ready to be exported into a file using the Export option in the File menu. Find the GLTF option and choose a file name. You can choose a number of options, but the default options are fine. Just make sure that the Animations checkbox is selected. I will now upload the model to P3D. Once uploaded, we can hide the animations by clicking the eye icons in the Animation tab. Then we can add a hotspot that can control the animation. First, give the hotspot a name, then attach the annotation label by clicking the model like this. Then locate the focus action setting in the left panel and press the plus icon to add the two animations that we created in Blender. After saving, we can now control the animation by clicking the hotspot label.